issues with that? Rob, do you have any issues? I remember you said earlier that you're
Yeah, I'm gonna follow along and take very thorough notes.
solid. Here, I got some very basic slides. All right, so fun fact too. I actually made these slides with Gemini. I like coded these, so I like just don't make slides anymore. Um, all right, so yeah, today's session. Hey, Rudy, good to have you. Today's session, Beyond Chat, building your first AI agent with MCP. So in today's session, I'm going to be just showing you guys how like kind of like the basics of building agents. And Claude is really the best tool I found to just get a highly functional agent because Claude is just so agentic in the way they've developed the model and the way they've built the scaffolding around it. This pattern is really what you would do if you were to be building an agent in production anyway. So you can sort of like even just demo things in sort of a more controlled fashion here. And you can take those same patterns out if you actually do want to code something or even do like multi-agent patterns. It scales quite well. So I'm starting first with what's the difference between asking an AI to write text and asking it to do things? Does anybody know what I'm getting at with this? Like, how does an AI do things versus just write text? I'll
My
show
mind
you.
is towards like a multi-step scenario versus more of a single step or short number of step scenarios. Agents versus non-agents. That's where my mind goes towards when you ask this question.
It's a really great way of putting it, Rob. This is like a very simple framework. There's a lot of ways that people define agents, but even like a simple chatbot that's like a one step, I would still consider to be an agent. Where like on the left here, we just have ChatGPT, which is really just an API with inputs and outputs, where the flow is constantly just one way, where every time you send a message, you just put the whole conversation into the API, and then it generates the next response, and it gives you back the whole conversation. And the conversation is really sort of an illusion because it's just continually feeding it in a loop, but it's always like a one-way interaction, and it's a one step. Now, what I would like classically think of as a agent, people refer to as a reason act pattern, where the agent or like ChatGPT will effectively, when you give it tools like web search or like Todoist and file system, which I put in the pre-work, you give some input and it will generate, so let's say apt, it'll generate what thing it's supposed to be doing. So if it thinks that, okay, I should probably reply with text here, I'm going to reply with text, but I might reply with instructions for web search, or I might reply with instructions for file system or Todoist. It will get data from whatever that action is. So like web search, it'll bring back the results. It'll observe what it got back. It'll think again, like, all right, do I have enough to reply and exit this loop? And if not, it'll continue to just go in this circle, which is how you end up getting this agent experience where it kind of feels like the agent is thinking about what you're asking and is taking multiple steps. Because it's really just like a loop that has some exit criteria where, okay, when the agent thinks that it has the information, it'll leave. Otherwise, it'll continue to do things. This is like more basics, but yeah, can anybody explain what a API is? Does anybody like not know what an API is or is unfamiliar with what APIs are? The slide's a bit indicative. Essentially, on the left, like an API is really, so the acronym, I think is like application programming interface. It's more of like a system way of accessing the same applications, where on the left, we have a my tasks, you can click this button, add slide. All we're really doing is we're sending this information, this like message, finish slides, and sending it to, it's almost like a PO box of like, I'm going to expect messages to come in this particular way. I'm going to do something with it. This is for people on the right. This is like for machines, and this is how systems connect and pass data. And this is how we end up giving access to our agents to use our applications. We don't do it on the left. We end up plugging it into what's on the right. Now, I sort of said earlier, when I had given the title to this workshop, that we'd be going about MCP. So Model Context Protocol is Anthropic's way of getting around the translation problem. So your model, ChatGPT, can generate what it thinks it needs to do, but the API requires the instructions in a very specific way. And there needs to be sort of a translation and somebody to actually take that message from ChatGPT, go to the application, do something with it, return with data, and then give it back to ChatGPT to then be able to continue to reason on it. And that's effectively what an MCP server is. It's just a very standard way of connecting the outputs of the agent, sending it to an API, and then bringing it back and then giving it back to ChatGPT. And MCP servers you can build one time, and then any agent just knows how to interact with it because as part of the protocol are sort of instructions and tool definitions that are easily interpretable. And you can just build that interface one time versus everybody having to build their own separate connection to it. So that's really as much as you need to know about what MCP is it lets your agent do things and use the apps that you want to use. MCP is a universal adapter. Here's sort of like a quick just demonstration on what this looks like. So like conversational AI, if you don't have tools and you generate, say you were to send ChatGPT, create a presentation on MCP servers, it would just create just text. And it's like a very like linear interaction, just one way pass through. But a tool-aware agent that has multiple tools, which we'll get into after these quick slides, is I had this question ask, research MCP at a to-do list. And there's this like multi-stage that React loop where, okay, given this goal, it thinks first, then it generates this action. And then our MCP server would essentially pass the message, use the web search tool, bring it back. And then it would see that web search. Maybe it was like it sees the Google result and it just continues to do this until it gets to the end where it's gotten all the information it needs to fulfill the original task. So yeah, today we have our agent, we have the MCP server, we have our tools, pretty much it. I'll share my screen and I'll walk you guys through the Claude build, and then we can poke around. If anybody in the survey, I know I asked you guys like if there were any MCP servers you wanted to try. Some of them are like a little trickier to set up, or they're not as clear. We can set that up together, and I can show you some of the practices I use to get more consistent behavior out of the agents. So I'm going to share my whole screen.
Brendan, as you are sharing your screen, I have just one suggestion. Are you planning to record this session by any chance?
Yeah, so this is being recorded, Sachin.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Okay, so if everybody has Claude Desktop set up already, Claude at this point of the three providers, like the three top tier providers, Gemini, Claude, ChatGPT, Claude is the only one that offers custom MCP access. And there are more agents now that are like supporting this out of the box. And ChatGPT is starting to, I think in their Teams membership, they recently just enabled the ability to set up MCP servers in for enterprise stuff, but you still can't really use it. So you can only really use the tools that they've given you, like web search. I think they've built connectors to Google Drive too, but even then it's really read only, but really cool stuff can happen when you can edit. So the way we're going to do this to set up the MCP servers, go to your Claude settings. So here, Rob, so in the developer section here, so I already have MCP server set up, but if you don't have any set up yet, click on edit config, and that should open up a browser or a Finder window where it'll pull up this Claude Desktop config JSON. And I made a copy of this because I have my API keys in there, so I don't want to show everybody. So I'm going to open this up. And if you're unfamiliar with what JSON is, I actually don't know what the acronym stands for, but it's just a simple format with brackets that convey information in a standardized way. There's this MCP servers, all of the MCP servers are just contained within these brackets where each one of these is its own separate MCP configuration. In the pre-work, I'm going to pull it up right now. I showed an example of a simple configuration that you can just drop in without having to change much besides adding in your information. So I'm pulling this up now. Oh yeah, actually, Rob too, you may need to install npx node.js. So this might pose a problem. If you don't, you can just Google it. It's pretty fast.
Okay, got it.
But yeah, essentially, all you need to do is just copy and paste this MCP server configuration for the file system MCP and the Todoist in here. And it's funny, I actually literally will just copy and paste this whole thing, put it into Claude, and I'll say, can you just add this JSON? Because I'm very lazy and I don't want to make sure the brackets all connect properly. It nails it every time. So when you add them to this, you save, and then you restart Claude, start it back up again. You'll find that your MCP servers are here in this in the tools. And You can turn them on and off. You can choose which ones you want to have access. There's some research on like tool performance kind of dropping if you have too many tools available, because effectively what this does is in your message, in your conversation, it just inserts the tool definitions above your chat, essentially. So it is still taking up part of the context window, and you have like 70 tools available. It's a bit harder for Claude to figure out like which one it's supposed to call. In general, it's like, don't have all your tools on at once because they're all getting thrown in. And typically, like most workflows, you don't really want to have like 70 different decisions anyway. There's usually like 3 or 4 things you want to do, but just something to keep in mind when you're working on this.
Hey, Brandon. So you're getting an MCP set up for each app separately, correct?
Yeah, each MCP server has its own like configuration, and I'll show later like where to find those, to like find anyone that you want. I think in the survey I showed like Glama, but yeah.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, so I'll demonstrate both of these in like a very simple case, and then we'll get a bit more advanced. So I'm just going to turn on the file system, which I think is very, it's a pretty cool one. So I'll just say, can you write a report on, or actually, for a class on MCP, write it in my. So in the MCP configuration, you tell Claude like where you want to be able to save things. So in the definition of this file system, the way it's written here, this gives Claude access to your documents folder. And now when you run Claude with the tools, it'll tell you like what tools it's calling. So now it's calling the list allowed directories, and you can see the response it's getting, where effectively the MCP server pulls back this information, gives it to Claude, and now Claude knows, okay, I can see desktop Claude workspace. And it can continue to take more action. So right now it's writing the file, where it's literally writing this document, and it's going to save it on my workspace. And like one of the first things I did when I was playing around with this, I saved it to a file that's synced to my Google Drive, where there is a Google Drive MCP, but this is like one of the ways where, okay, like I'm going to just save this here. So these conversations are persistent and I don't have to like copy and paste these things. Okay. So now if I look in my Claude workspace, save this file here for me. Some other things. So Claude can like write files, but it can also edit. And if you've been using like ChatGPT or Claude, sometimes maybe, it's like you have to like copy and paste things, or you're trying to move stuff where like, okay, I have to start over from scratch every time. One thing you can do with this is you can save documents, conversations to your computer, and then you can tell Claude later, like, hey, can you reference that thing and like pick up where we left off? So I can say, can you give me a summary of the MCP report? Alex, so this is like kind of getting at what you were saying, is like without any particular like additional context, I don't have access to a specific MCP report in our conversation. No.
Yeah, that's pretty much what happened. You have to like give it very specific context, and then it will ask you for permission to run it or something. That was what I was stuck with.
Yeah. So because these like LLMs are like pretty like they're probabilistic, sometimes it hits this on the first try. Other times it doesn't know to check for it. So this is like a really funny one because it's like pretty obvious. I guess there's like maybe like 10 different tools, and it doesn't like think to call like the read directory tool. But I prompted it again, and it's like, okay, I'll go check it. And then of course it finds it. Here it is. I'll get into how you can get around that and make this like very consistent. But I will just convey one more thing. So I've already showed you guys how you can use MCP to hit specific tools. I think what's really cool is when you use MCP across like many different tools, and you can actually really start to get like an orchestration, feel like you have a digital assistant. And the way I'll do this, I think I'll actually skip ahead because I definitely need a prompt to make this happen. But so in Claude, there are projects. And if you look at my projects already, it's like you can see that I have many things that are titled agent. And in this workspace, all of the conversations here will share project knowledge. And within this workshop agent project, I have instructions saying like, you're an expert scheduling assistant for a product manager. I want you to do these things. These are instructions on how it should process my requests. And the way I got this was I literally went over to Gemini. I wasn't even in Claude. I was in Gemini and I was like, hey, I'm doing a workshop and I wanted to use Todoist and my Google Calendar. I'm a product manager, give instructions. And this is oftentimes like a pretty good start. So I'll show you guys how this works. So I have another MCP server connected to Google Calendar. I'll first just instantiate my calendar with new create, and Rob, you've already seen this like months ago when I first did this. New create a mock week. Now I'll say like my prompt didn't even include this instruction on how to do this, but just like generally it's quite able to respond to context where it's like, okay, like I'll create a fake schedule for you. Let me just check your calendar first. And now it's proposing this mock schedule of a product manager. I'm just doing this just to instantiate it so then we can like play around with it. But it's like even this is like already like pretty realistic. So it even just says like, okay, here's how I'm aligning this to be like a product manager schedule. And I did tell it in the prompt, like always confirm with me before you take an action. So like if you did this without that prompt, it could just go on and just start doing a bunch of random stuff. And this is where you kind of want to maybe give it permission because sometimes it can just go off on a deep end. And when you're paying for tokens, like that's pretty important. But we have an allocation with the membership, so not something to worry about. Now I'll just say no. It's actually asking me if I want to demonstrate conflict resolution by making a conflict. So I was actually yes. Great idea. Please do it. And separately, I'll just show you. So this might take a moment to generate all these things. Do you have any thoughts, comments? Has anybody like seen this before? Besides Rob?
Well, no, Brandon, I was going to say it's cool to see more of the behind the scenes on this thing. It's really neat to see how you got the MCP set up here. And I was going to ask too, so you can define sort of working blocks, right? Like you can say, hey, from time A to B, focus on these sort of activities, and then like deep working session in the morning, for example. And then in the afternoons, you can define the lighter work. You can kind of set those sort of rules in place in the prompts, and this can figure out where to sort of schedule everything from there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so we can even just like try it out and like that's something we can try while we're together. So like I booked more
Yeah.
time so that we can play around with this. I can show you some techniques too to troubleshoot this. But
Yeah.
so where did this happen? I'm just wondering, did this happen in my other calendar? Okay, here we go. Yes. Now if you look in my Google Calendar, they are hidden. Yeah. So my events are here. Not too many like events. You can see them on the calendar. You should just say, can you create mock events 9 to 5 p.m. on 6/11 through 6/13. So I'm just going to fill up my calendar a bit more intentionally. Alex, when you got the MCP set up, did you play around with like creating tasks and like see that reflect? I can't hear you.
I didn't get to try that yet, but I was able to add it manually and then get it to reflect. I was like, okay, now I think I'm in a good working spot for tonight. So I could give it a try right now, actually.
Yeah, I was gonna say, everybody, if you have if you got your Todoist set up, yeah, definitely give it a try and see it reflect. There's actually something that I've been meaning to do more of like use Todoist in this way. When I had first sort of like crafted this use case, it was actually when Rob had talked about wanting kind of like more of a scheduling assistant, and I was like, oh yeah, like I think that could happen with MCP. And one of the cool parts, and I really should have set this up before this workshop, but the combination of like the calendar and your to-do list, like it can move both the calendar events and your to-do list items and like generate to-do lists based on like your calendar too. So like there can be a bit like more of a tightly coupled loop, and some of the stuff is like kind of hard to maintain, but when you can just like tell Claude to like you did something or clear it, or maybe you send like notes, or there's some other way you can give the context, Claude can kind of take care of that for you, which really kind of removes a lot of the overhead. I'll get into a way that you can troubleshoot this. So like when you start to get behavior that you're not a super big fan of, let's say you spoke to Claude and you told it what you wanted the agent to do and it generated a prompt, right? And like things are still going off the rails. What I like to do is I like to copy the entire conversation of that went off the rails and copy the tool calls. And then I pretty much just give that to another Claude instance. And I say like, here's like the conversational thread and here are all the tool calls that happened. This is what I wanted to do. But I wanted this to happen. What would you suggest? And here's like the original prompt. And that's oftentimes enough for it to make the right insertions and like change things to then get the behavior you want. Oftentimes, like you don't even really have to be tweaking it yourself. As long as you're collecting the context and then just providing the direction, it's quite astute at making those adjustments. So I'm going to pause here. Also, I'll welcome, Charlie, Arpit. Good to see you guys. Come in. Rudy.
Good to see you as well. Yep, good to see you guys.
I think nobody wanted to see me eat dinner, so that's why I wasn't camera off.
Good to see you, Rudy. That's like the bulk of my content right now. So I think like some of this time now is, like, have you guys gotten a chance to play with this? I also, or like urge you guys to try this. Let me show you where we can show you guys generally like where I go for MCP servers and how to like get these things set up. So glama.ai is my preferred place for this. And there are a lot of like pre-built MCPs already where I like to sort by GitHub stars because it's just a general mark of quality. Effectively, just like other developers have saved the repo. So you know that it's legitimate and not going to cause issues or is like not badly configured. You can really just add any of them here. There's a lot of like really cool stuff that you can extend. So like this one, knowledge graph memory. So this is another way of having like persistent memory. Maybe like you could think of it the way like ChatGPT has persistent memory. You can design your own memory system that can really expand to grow and like have really any amount of information you want. There's like a few different memory systems you could like experiment with that are quite effective. There are MCPs that allow you to take over like a browser and to actually like browse the internet and like take screenshots and like automate things.
Brandon, I have a
Good.
question. So I saw like a bunch of your work related to, to like manage your Google Calendar, etc. Right? Have you tried using Gemini for it? Why do you like end up choosing like MCP for manage those tasks?
That's a great question. So not all agent implementations are built the same, as I guess I would say. So I chose Claude too because Claude just in benchmarks, they've just done something with the way that they've developed it that it just really knows how to think about tool calling and like kind of charting a path. Google technically has MCP or they have like tool integrations where so this is my work one. Let me give it my personal. Well, one, it's like not super clear what exactly Gemini has access to, right? It's like there are these tools here, like the video generation or deep research or Canvas. But technically, apps. It's like Google technically has access to all of these things. Personally, I've found that they're just not very consistent. Like when we had done this, when Robert brought this up like months ago, I remember we were trying to use Gemini to like just create calendar invites, and sometimes it would work, sometimes it doesn't. Gemini also doesn't expose the tool calls, so it's very hard to troubleshoot. Like it's really hard to know whether or not it failed because of the like why exactly. It's hard to like reprompt it. So for that reason, it's like just like really difficult to use. Yeah. And like with a lot of this stuff too, it's like when you can't like really troubleshoot that, it just feels like, okay, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. With Claude, I know why it went off the rails and it's like very easy to just like correct it and like not have that problem come up again. Yeah.
Brandon, do you think, because I think when we first tried this, Gemini was still on 2.0, I think. Do you think that 2.5 would make a difference in this context, or is that not, would you not expect that to affect this sort of use case that much?
Yeah. So like the model strength, probably. I think some of it might just be like the way they implemented the scaffolding around
Sure.
the model, because the model is so good. But yeah, let me actually just try this because I haven't really given Gemini a real chance after. Now at the Google I/O, Google said on the roadmap that like they're giving broad MCP support. So like I think there will be a future when Gemini can literally just plug into everything and it's gonna be awesome. But like right now, it's just like really not there. So like it looks a lot better now. This was actually able to get.
Yeah, sure does.
So can you reschedule next week?
Yeah, Nancy, for context, when Brandon and I first worked on this a few months ago, we were using 2.0, and like he was saying, it was not consistent. And so it's interesting to take a look at 2.5 implementation because perhaps it's better, but that's kind of the genesis of the idea here.
That's very helpful. I feel like there's also a path dependency here. Once you like fix with the agent that you're generally content with, it's just really difficult to switch.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I just said like, can you reschedule next week? And it's just like, yeah, your calendar's next week is clear. It's like, that's not what I want. I'll say, can you schedule the meetings you identified to next week while this is running? There's like something I do want to tell you guys. So, oh, okay, Gemini is like thinks it can do this. So when you run these MCP servers, what's actually happening is like on your computer, you're running code that Claude will call, and like the program that your computer is running will actually hit the API, but you have to be running it on your computer. So you can't really use these MCP tools while you're on your phone or while you're out. So like there's kind of a limitation, and something that I do is I use Airtable. I'll like have Claude write to my Airtable for my social media content so that I can store my ideas and I can retrieve them later, and have them like available on the web. But for a while now, it's been pretty difficult to do that while I'm away. But recently, Claude actually created support for remote MCP servers that are like hosted. So they're not like on your computer. They actually like are on a server on the internet. So you can add integrations now, and you can have MCP servers on your phone where like you could be walking and have the exact same ability to like take actions across your app, where like you could effectively use Claude as a digital assistant everywhere you go now, which is pretty awesome. Whereas previously you had to literally be at your laptop on your personal machine. This is like a huge boost in usability. And like this, you just need to find somewhere to like host those servers, which like maybe that's like another working session, but fairly simple to get those hosted. And then you can have access to MCPs anywhere you go. So yeah, Nancy, Gemini, like still not sure if it like can or can't do it. It like continues to like check in with me. I think there might be some honestly like safeguards too around like the Gemini experience of like making sure to like validate before taking actions. Whereas with Claude, because it's custom, it's a bit more free in taking those actions.
That makes more sense. Pretty helpful to just do the illustration. Thank you.
Yeah. Now I will show you guys one more thing too. So the more you sort of like dive into this stuff, I'd say like MCPs are like fairly, I wouldn't say like they're like advanced, so to speak, but it's like you do kind of have to like find the server, set it up. And, it's not really like that much code, but there's a little bit of code you have to deal with just moving it. If you're willing to go like a little bit further, Claude has this product called Claude Code, which is effectively a very minimal wrapper around like the model on your computer. Whereas like Claude Desktop, it really kind of constrains what you're doing just to give a more user-friendly experience and like a more of a chat interface. But you can more or less give Claude like kind of open reign on your computer and its resources to like do things, and you can like do some like really cool stuff. So I'm going to show you guys. I've opened up this terminal on my computer, and I won't go into like how exactly to install this, but I wanted to show you guys. There's this app called like Claude Code. And Claude Code is sort of like an agentic coding tool, but it gives you access to Claude and all your MCP servers in a way where there's significantly more freedom, where you can even have Claude create other Claude instances to do things, where I guess like the first level is you have Claude giving access to MCP tools to be able to take actions. You can have Claude generating other Claudes to then take more actions. And the way most people experience this is like the deep research agent that ChatGPT has, Claude has. You can effectively do that over any type of action. So you can create something like does anybody have something that they're working on right now that they want to share? Some like general topic.
Does it need to be in a specific area, or is there any limitations to?
No, not just anything. Anything. Actually, the more open-ended, random it is, better.
I'm right now working on planning a vision casting session with the team. The background is that we're all going on an offsite, and it's just like the leadership team within a function, and we need to cast a vision of how do we want to change? Where do we want this? How do we want this function to evolve? Where do we want to take this to? What kind of commitment would it need from us as leaders, and then from our teams? Like really vague, and somehow it's fallen on me to like define that vision casting session. Would that be?
Yeah, sure, let's do that. Keep it very open-ended.
That's very really vague. So if you want it vague, this is it.
Yeah. Pepsi, right, Arpa? Can you help me create a vision?
Pepsi procurement.
Pepsi. So my creativity is a bit bounded right now, but what I can do is like, let's say like a report, and please generate a report, or
Is this something where Brandon providing some background context helped in getting a better output? Or is this, I'm not sure how Claude Code works.
Yeah, so Claude Code is effectively Claude. It's the exact same thing, but you can have it. It just has like more free reign to do things. So like in this example here, I'm saying you could do this in Claude Desktop or Claude Web, create a vision, but you can tell it to like orchestrate across your MCP tools in ways that you want. So like, I'm not being super creative right now. I'm just going to do like use file system and web search effectively, but you could give it like multiple things. Like if you give it an MCP to generate like images or videos, it could generate videos and do all this stuff and in like order. So right now I'm just going to have it do web search and create like a series of reports and like a spreadsheet essentially.
I guess like the question here is, so when we're interacting with Claude Code and giving it the prompt, how is it different from giving it the prompt to like your regular Claude interface, right? With regular Claude, you would go like, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. This is the context. And then you either ask for an output straight away, or you either ask it to engage in a series of questions to get more out of you and then define an output. So that's how I would typically solve this problem if I would do it with traditional Claude. With Claude Code, how does it differ?
Yeah, I mean, so Claude Code is meant for like literally like coding. So some of it is like it just gives you a bit more flexibility. So like Claude in the desktop or in the web app, you could think of it as like a single Claude instance where you're having one conversation. But like in this example here, I asked it to do this. So create a grouping of reports in a CSV. I said spawn sub agents to do this, and like it creates a task list. And there's actually 3 separate Claude instances right now in parallel doing search. So it's like rather than having like one conversation, there's like 3 things happening at the same time. So some of this is like you can even like speed things up by doing this. If you have a lot of files on your computer, it could have like free access to everything on your computer. You can be calling MCP tools, like hitting different applications in a way that is much more bounded when you're using Claude Desktop.
Thank you.
Yeah, and like this has been like a very interesting tool for myself personally, where with like MCP servers, Claude can literally just like code the MCP server. I can literally ask it, I can tell it to find something on the internet, and it can find the API, figure out the spec, and then code the MCP server and then install it into itself. Where like I don't even have to like do it. It can like create its own custom MCP server. So it's like, should it exist somewhere on the internet, it's able to do that for you. And like, if you were to do that on Claude Desktop, it could find it, but then you would have to like do a lot of steps yourself. Whereas this kind of like completely takes it out of your hands. If it's like bounded enough that it's able to figure it out, you can do some like pretty cool stuff. And you get free access to this as part of the Claude Pro membership. This was something that they recently just added like last week. And
they're making it hard. How many pro memberships do I have? It's like you get one for OpenAI, then Gemini, and Claude.
yeah. I mean, if you have like the pro membership for all these, it's like you're paying like $500 a month, and like they release every like 2 weeks, 4 weeks. It feels like. Okay. I mean, this is sort of like the bulk of the content I wanted to share with you guys. I guess like, does anybody have any ideas around like what things they would do with this if they had more access, or like any other applications that would be interesting to plug this into?
I think for me, there's a couple of things. One of them being, I think ChatGPT, like you can use MCP, right, for linear. And so essentially, we use linear, and so essentially having it automate like a lot of the issue writing, right, and which is kind of like a big thing for us. And then the other piece is we also have like a Slack channel, which we talked about, Brandon. For support, that support does go to linear. So it's just about like essentially looking through those, organizing it. I don't know, I really kind of want to test the bound of that, what automation is. So that's one side. And the other side is I'm helping my wife kind of build her speech therapy, like this consulting business. And I mean, there's so much, basically everything she does could be automated in a lot of really awesome ways, but one of them is just the most time consuming thing is note writing, right? So just kind of taking a lot of the context from the session, what she's done, and also how she wants to write her notes and how she's written notes before, and just like automating writing those notes for her. So those are probably some of the ones I'm thinking about.
So this isn't like MCP related, but Rudy, like that use case you just said. So something that everyone here probably experienced is like, eventually you have too much context in the context window and like the quality really drops. This is actually one place where having sub agents is like really cool, because you can tell Claude to spawn subclauds to read across all these documents and kind of crawl over your notes effectively, right? And each Claude will read it separately and then report back. And you're only getting like a summary from each one. And then like you can always have the top Claude like dive in deeper once it's like verified, but it's not having to like take in all that context by itself. So there's like some interesting like context management stuff there where you can really search over a very large set of data in a way that you can't do if you're just doing it manually. You have to like start over and then you lose some relevance.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I didn't realize that. Yeah, I like pretty little for us too.
Yeah. Or like something I'm thinking of doing too is like with like the social media stuff is like it can go in and like update a lot of like fields. So actually, like if you're like maintaining data, right? It's like, okay, it can go into like all these different tables and like update certain fields where maybe you have like a bunch of spreadsheets and you need to like, oh yeah, like some data field like changed something. You can literally go across all of them. It'll automatically do that for you. And like that would have to be like an automation that you'd have to like build intentionally, whereas Claude Code can effectively just do that out of the box in response to your request.
Wow, that's pretty cool. And then the other piece from that support channel too, like every month I had to put together like a report as like, you know, like where our biggest bugs coming from, et cetera, and like just having it automated as well. I mean, that'll be like pretty key for us, right? So it's sentiment analysis, like where's everyone at? What's the biggest thing causing the biggest issues? It's a ton of room.
Yeah, I mean, even the sentiment analysis is like I'm trying to get like performance data on like my social media posts where I'm thinking about giving it like one, it could like browse the internet on some of these things, but I think like a lot of the social media sites are blocking like web browsing. So it could be like an API to like crawl through and do sentiment analysis by just finding the data, right? Yeah, so like this Claude Code instance is actually still working. It's literally been 6 minutes and it's still doing these different tasks. It's already created 2 reports. It's this future vision research and this procurement analysis. So it's like interesting and like it creates like separate artifacts for you. And if you were to be a bit more like directed with it, you know, you can create like, you know, different things. You could have this thing create like many different iterations or like different, like for myself, it's like I'll create like 20, 30 different posts and I'll like look and see which ones I want to keep, but they're like separate. So they can be managed separately. I'm just curious, is anybody having like difficulty like seeing how this like fits into their flows? Like what's sort of like just like a vibe check. I think what was that, Charlie? Yeah, totally fair.
Yeah, I think for my use case, I don't think it's gonna be too complicated for what I kind of want to do right now. Because I think what I kind of want to do mostly is about like scheduling, kind of organizing my files, and so I don't see how I would make it more complicated, you know, aside from my very basic use case, because what you just did right now is like way above what I'm planning to do with it already.
Yeah. I mean, for like most people, I mean, even like myself, like there are certain things that like it's just nice to have this thing, like being able to have this thing like code something if I need it and figure it out and just sort it out is like really cool. Like that's like probably one of the top things I use it for. But otherwise, like most things can just be done here. And it's like really nice to have the conversational logs just like ready to go and on my phone too. Especially now that you can do MCP servers from your phone.
Are you able to like, do you have an understanding of how many files it's going to create? Or is it just kind of like going on its own, doing its own thing? Or you have to like add that to the instructions?
Yeah, so I was like purposely vague. I probably could have been more specific just so it doesn't like run so long. But this is like I guess a good illustration that yeah, this thing is literally working for like 10 minutes. And you can think by like the end of the year that you're gonna be able to get agents that can probably work for 30 minutes to an hour longer on complex tasks across all of your things. If you know, if you say you have an agent that has access to all of your data and all your previous documents and work, it's like you almost don't you can stop giving it context. You can tell it to read through your stuff and just make sure it knows what's up. You can interrupt it. So like I can like send a message and be like, okay, can you stop? You've gone a little too far. Let's do this. Which, you know, 5 minutes in, that might have been more the move. If I like see in the tasks that like, okay, that's a little bit too much now. But yeah, Arpit, this is, I can email this to you. This is,
That'd be amazing. Thanks, man.
yeah, it's doing a lot. It's doing a lot.
So this makes me even more energized to go back and watch the first 30 minutes video that I missed.
Yeah, Arpit, were you able to get MCP set up on your side?
I did not, but I'll do it.
All right, cool. Yeah, I have this vision of just never having to organize information where like I just have one place that I talk to and one place that I pull out, and I never have to like look at my files ever again. And I'm just sort of like have like this idea of almost like recursive self-improvement if I'm just able to always like read through all my old stuff and then have suggestions based on what I'm trying to do in the moment. That's kind of like what I've been trying to do with MCP and Claude.
This is actually amazing. I think we touched upon this in the last workshop as well. It's not as straightforward for it to look into your professional or Outlook calendars, right? Because it has to jump through some layers and there are some hoops to get over and look into employer emails and stuff.
Yeah. It's funny. So typically, yes. I will say though, if you are using Jira or like Confluence, so Atlassian, they released a remote MCP server that you can plug into. And just with the way that the security works, the authentication actually authenticates the server, and then you can plug into the MCP. Like you can actually plug like an enterprise Jira that's like protected. You can like plug Claude into it and you can like retrieve tickets and stuff. It's almost like you're just viewing it on your browser. But I've been playing around with it with like Copilot, and I can effectively ask Copilot like, hey, through MCP servers, is there some ticket that my engineering team like I need to reply to? Like they commented, they tagged me, and I forgot to reply to them. And it'll be like, hey, Bonnie just needs a reply to you here, and I can tell it, and it'll literally leave the comment for me, and I don't have to like comb through all of these things.
So would it be possible to do if I had Copilot from work?
Are you in Jira, Arpit?
I don't necessarily like deal with Jira or any of the Atlassian products, but I was just wondering that I just got 2 days ago the Copilot Pro at work. I was one of the few people who got selected to get Copilot Pro to test it out and stuff.
Cool.
And I was just curious that does Copilot stand alone? Does it have the functionality to interact with MCPs and organize like my Outlook information or my work information, or is that a capability that doesn't exist yet?
What? I'm actually not familiar with Copilot Pro. Like, because the Copilot kind of refers to like the chat too, right? Like the basic chat.
Yeah, so I got like the Copilot Pro, which is basically Copilot integrated in full suite of Microsoft products that I have from work. So now I have Copilot in my basically every MS Outlook product.
To be honest, I'm not as familiar with Zero. I'm not as familiar with what this has, because I think like the Copilot, they do have like kind of a basic agent setup. I think everyone's like trying to build agents where you can like plug into stuff. I'm not too certain on. I can show you what I mean though by the Copilot. So like this is actually like a code editor, and there's a Copilot here, like it's like GitHub Copilot, where it reads the code base, and you can talk to it here, and you can add MCP servers. You might have this actually as part of your Copilot license. Like you might just be able to download it.
I'll look into it because this would be like the next unlock in my work productivity if I can make it work.
Oh, dude, yeah, it'd be pretty sweet. Yeah, Nancy, Alex, you guys have anything you want to chat through? Otherwise, like this is sort of like the end of the workshop session.
I think that you covered kind of most of it. I think I need to think more into like further use cases I may have, like something more complex that I can comb through. And when I come up with that, I probably just reach out to you and be like, hey, found something cool. Because right now, just organizing tasks around is just something probably major for me. That's it.
Yeah.
Same. I'm just sorry. I've just been spending time looking at this directory for like all MCPs and get inspirations. But this session is like super helpful and introduced me to a lot of, new thoughts about how I can optimize my workflow.
Something to consider too. These different tools have like deep research, and something you can do is like I've certainly done this. Like I'll ask, like I want to do X, Y, Z. What MCP servers, if I string them together, would help me do this? Because there's so many different servers that can do so many different things.
Yeah. Also, like a thing I was doing was literally ask the agent that I did like the majority of my work with GPT. So like I was literally be like, based on like my behaviors interacting with you, what do you think can be optimized on my workflow? And some of those suggestions are quite helpful.
Nice. Is that with ChatGPT?
Yeah, because ChatGPT have a lot of my information and like my behaviors. So
It's
Like,
actually
what do you think can be optimized from our interaction?
it's actually scary. If you've been using ChatGPT for more than a year, it's actually scary how much it knows about you. I ran through like a few custom prompts to take that piece out, and I'm of the opinion that if ChatGPT was to take a behavioral interview in my place, it'll represent me better than I could do myself.
More consistent, maybe at the very least.
Dude, it was bringing up some like deep-seated psychological insights about like my patterns, my strengths, my weaknesses, what I should be watching out for, my blind spots. It was insane. I was kind of like scared, to be honest.
I mean, like there's so much you can infer from like your conversations and like the things you bring up. I think that's like one of the cool parts of I don't know, it's like ChatGPT has their particular way of doing it, right? But you don't really get to see what exactly it has access to. Like they've saved some portion of it, and that's what enters the context window. But I do think what's cool with some of this is that you can develop your own kind of memory system or whatever memory system would be useful for you.
Actually trying to dig through the exact prompt that I gave ChatGPT, but it was scary. It felt like it at a meta level it has stored a lot about me. Like it actually knew who I am, where I live, what's the zip code, my wife, my kids, like all the details it spit out. And I was like, I'm not sure if I'm comfortable even knowing all about just casually storing it.
I think it was Sam Altman was saying that he thinks there should be like AI privilege of almost like an attorney-client privilege. Like you shouldn't have to disclose your AI conversations because people are just like so personal with it.
Yeah, just test it out too. It's so crazy that it even picks up these minor details I wouldn't have noticed. It's just telling me like you have a habit of using ChatGPT on desktop in dark mode. I'm just like, I mean, that's something so minute you don't pick up, but they're like, yeah, you tend to use dark mode a lot, so here's what it is. They're just calling me out on this. This is insane.
Wait, it says dark mode?
Yeah. Because I there's a dark mode for ChatGPT. Like I always use dark mode for it, and then I I don't know that's something they would call out on me as well. Like, yeah, you probably have a habit of using dark mode as well, a lot of on other things as well. So it's crazy.
I thought you said dark moments. I was like, yo, ChatGPT really knows.
No. This is dark mode.
Yeah. And I feel like with this workshop, it's like having a follow-up session so people could like poke around and share. I feel like last session, like we were sharing a lot of stuff that we were doing. And like this was maybe like you need some time to digest it.
To be honest, this is something, Brandon, I actually have not tested at all. So this is something that I've seen from your post, and because I engaged in your post, I started seeing from some of the other people on LinkedIn. But this is an area I've not delved in at all. So I think your sheet, the pre-worksheet that you sent us is really helpful because it'll help me get set up. Because it's just one of those things that work inertia. It feels like you never get the time to actually sit down and learn it by yourself. But you made it super simple by giving me that sheet. And I was like, okay, amazing. Now I can actually set it up and start testing out. And if I have any issues, I know the guy himself. So I'm like, hey.
Dude, I'm excited. No, I feel like you're going to get a lot of value out of this. I would, definitely urge you guys to check out. Claude Code is pretty easy to set up, to be honest. And the fact that it can set up other MCP servers for you, honestly, is just like so nice. Because sometimes when I first was poking around this, it can be a bit arcane. Like with some of these instructions, like developers wrote these. So you're going to get developer instructions that they're just assuming you're going to know stuff. Like with UVX, like UVX is like a software package that you need to have, or else this is not going to work. And you're just going to get an error, and Claude's not going to tell you why it's not working. It's because you didn't install UVX in your terminal. Like this literally, I did not play with MCP servers for weeks because I literally could not get it to work until I found a tutorial that explained that to me. But otherwise, there's also another one that if you want something that's like more convenient, that's literally like just launched, where GenSpark.ai is an agent. I don't know what model they use in the background, so like they probably like skimp out a little bit, but this one has a ton of MCP servers that are essentially already configured, and you can just click on it and it'll just install. And this can plug into your Drive, your Notion, other things. So it's like one way to have a very convenient one if you trust this company with your data. But they effectively are doing this where you have MCP everywhere, so you could have one app to hit all your do different things. They got a bunch of servers, laundry list.
It's crazy. Would it be possible to have MCPs built out to help you like crawl things online, just like kind of gather a bunch of like info on or like links or like recipes from like YouTube cooking videos or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, so in the same way that I had this agent crawl out and research all the stuff for like PepsiCo, like it literally just built like a vision doc, ports grouping, all these random look at this, like vision leadership reports, technology innovation reports. You can have it do whatever, like find recipes of some criteria or
Okay.
and bring the and like get the URL and like all whatever other data. It's super versatile.
That's quite neat then, yeah. And that's just setting it up via Claude Code or whatever. We can kind of just tell it to help us build a new MCP as well. Right.
Yeah, I think you can actually have Claude Desktop do that, but it's like a little bit less straightforward. When you're in the terminal like this, you just have like very open range to just do whatever. Yeah, I think in the desktop too, they put limits on how long the responses are. Like there's like some just more constraints just to make sure you have a good user experience. Whereas like this, you're literally just hitting the model directly. So it just like acts as freely as you want it to be.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'll say if you just go to Claude Code or type Claude Code, Anthropic has a website that actually like quite simple. All you need to do is just you install this node.js, which is like you just click on it, install it like an application, and then in your terminal, you open up a terminal like this. You can do terminal. You just copy this command in, hit enter, it runs, and you just type in like Claude into the terminal, and then it'll just activate, and then you're just talking to Claude. It's like very
Gotcha.
fast.
Cool. We'll test it out then for something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I think I'll wrap. It's been fun. Thank you guys for joining.
Yeah. Thank you for hosting. It's been quite
Thank you.
fun about this.
This is super helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. I'll see you guys.
All right, thanks.
Bye.